Welcome. I'm so glad you're here. I'm Kyle DeCuyan. I'm the executive director of the Poetry Project. And I have been so looking forward to this event for quite some time. Even with some encouraging change happening around our present context, there also continues to be so much uncertainty and loss still, and so much distance and dreaming of proximity. And across this time, the two most recent books from tonight's readers have been particularly dear to me. In both Wendy Shu's The Past and Rosemary Waldrop's The Nick of Time, the poets pull together fractured and oblique artifacts of memory. They ask questions of its construction, mutability, and our shifting relations to document. I'm so grateful and excited they will be sharing this work tonight. And before we get too deep into the event, I do just want to share some general notes. So I'm joined tonight from the Poetry Project by my colleagues Matt D'Angelo and Corey Hutchinson. Corey is going to place a link to some Zoom FAQs into the chat now, as well as a link to our statement on safer spaces. The three of us are working together to make sure this event runs as smoothly as possible and hopefully without any malice or disruption. But if you do receive any unwanted communications in the course of the event, please just chat anyone marked staff and we'll get that taken care of right away. The Poetry Project has been presenting live readings, performance, and other work out of St. Mark's Church in the Bowery, where I am now, since 1966. We are committed to continuously and critically engaging the history and future of our presence in this particular space. And as part of that, we would like to acknowledge that this venue is built upon unceded Indigenous lands, specifically the territory of the Lenape people. We recognize the continual displacement and violence perpetrated against Indigenous people and people of color by the US, and are aware that these kinds of acknowledgements can be misused as stand-ins for actual decolonization work, which is something for us to bear in mind as we go forward in our ongoing commitment to accountability, reparation, and equity. And Corey is now going to place another link, nativeland.ca, into the chat, in the hopes that you may feel encouraged to join us in this work from the different places where you're situated tonight. Finally, I want to share that while we have made all of our online readings free, we've also continued to pay the many readers, performers, teachers, and artists who share their work through the Poetry Project. So if you feel moved to support this, Corey is going to place a link to donate into the chat. And I'm going to turn now to introduce Wendy Shu, who will read first this evening, and then we'll conclude with a reading from Rosemary Waldrop. Wendy Shu is most recently the author of The Past, published by Wesleyan on the same date as Rosemary's book, and Phrases, named one of the 10 best poetry books of 2017 by the New York Times Book Review. Her work has appeared in The Best American Poetry, Granta, Tin House, Poetry, The New Republic, and widely elsewhere. Shu is assistant professor of writing at the New School in New York City. Near the end of Wendy Shu's book, The Past, is a poem titled Notes for an Opening, and it begins, "Time is very interesting in an academic sense. In a lived sense, it is the most boring thing in the world." Hovering through this book, we find time instead, I think, in some lyric sense, which is no sense at all, at least not stably or singularly so, even as the grooves of passage form such particular textures. Documents, photographs, psychic imprints, books, including this one, accumulate throughout these poems, frequently with their elements unsettled, as though troubling this notion of history, its aura, as anything fixed. The ghosts of this work are in the present and haunting forward, and these gestures call to mind the loving will for contact across generation, across language and difference of account. Here and elsewhere in Shu's work, it feels important to reckon time with place, the conditions of migration and diaspora. whether we are looking at the record or the border, some dissolving act of language is occurring. I think it is this blurring of entablatures which gives the work such a living quality, flickering, revelatory, ineffable, and true. It's a great pleasure now to welcome Wendy Shu to the Poetry Project.
Thank you so much, Kyle, for that intro. And thank you all for being here. I'm a little bit overwhelmed seeing all of your faces. I appreciate you being here when you could be so many other places. I thank you to the Poetry Project for making this gathering possible. For me to read with Rosemary, who I'm so excited to hear, is a really great honor. I'm gonna share a little bit from the past, and then I'm really excited to hear from, I'm just a commercial now for this book, or at least I want to. I've had this book at hand now for some time, and I'm blown away by it. So thank you, Rosemary, also for sharing this space with me. So what I'm going to do is I'd like to read briefly from each of the 3 sections from this new book called The Past. And funny enough, the sections are not the past, the present, and the future, though that's an idea I had after the book was finished. I'm going to start with some poems from the first section, which is called Pledge. And pledge certainly means pledge as in Pledge of Allegiance, also the naturalization pledge that you take upon arriving to this country or becoming a citizen of this country, both very strange and somewhat violent pledges that, you know, America will do to you. So I'm going to start by reading from Pledge, and then I'll move to the title section. Coming to America. Speak first of the flooded interior, supernaturally lit. I is an echo in the word, a proximity, birds over land, exquisite, a word I've welded into love. Sure, I was blessed at birth and have outpaced myself gently. They spoke to me in heavy abstraction, my tongue fading out. Sometimes a mouth is lost to slow time. Did I hear that somewhere? A gasp of memory appearing now as skin. I had been looking for something in others, a likening, further inquiry of the lyric self. When something inside me sprung up new, green even, more hostile, less wounded. How can this be the case? What can I do except continue to demonstrate love? Revision is a practice of faith. Revision is a practice of my love against time. Looking at my father. It's the inside which comes out as I contemplate him there half in sunlight, weeding diligently a Midwestern lawn. On my persons, I have only notes and a drying pen, the memory of onion blossoms scenting in a window. Reflection is my native medium. I am never arriving, only speaking briefly on material conditions between myself and others. My country inoculates me lovingly over time. My country grasps me like desire. I will show you my credentials, which is to say my vivid description if you ask. Here we are, my father and I, never hostile, a small offering. Pointless cut flowers appear on the kitchen table when one finally arrives into disposable income. Still possible. Am I living? Do I accept revision as my Godhead and Savior? I do, and I am. And in the name of my Chinese father, now dragging the tools back inside, brow shining, but always a grin, faithless except to protect whatever I still have time to become. Amen. I wrote this book as I crossed with my family a very strange anniversary of having been in this country for 30 years, more now. But so a lot of these poems are thinking about boundaries and borders in many senses, and who we can reach across them. This next poem is called Writing Home. Writing home. An absence declares its blunt self. I can't believe the extent of my luck, heard twice, like violets in a bath of lukewarm water. The city was my father's, though none of its sweetness appears here living before you. A strong instrument, a blowing on the hands and neck, a curtain almost open. I inherited a stiff collar sewn against loveliness, where once we must have walked freely into the city square and gathered there like intention. 2 lips bloomed on my mother's cheek. I felt a heavenly peace. Here, the marker you might have waited for, ancient dough rolled and fried. These days, the lyrics sentiment floats away from me like a river someone forgets to bless. Memory, to the dirt path opening again in a dream. I have not been back for many years. I walk the distance in my mind, the margins flowing by like so much foreign water. Names of the river. I did wrong by all ideas of nation, haunted by the afterlife of speech, public acts wagging their dutiful tails. I sat down in the crosswinds of a feeling, too wild to write it out, how the Velcro parts of me unstuck themselves. But do you too, alone, ever feel incompetent? If in one hand holding a wet tissue for dignity, when the youngs of you leaves you cold. Somewhere in America, a white boss in a dandelion dress shirt is raising his voice again. A quick pivot to the page where I stare down the verbs and I'm afraid to make a recitation of myself. Am I unimitable, or is this just another feeling? By all accounts, the river was yellowed over time, a yoke running over land, and yet in places, pearly foam, like clouds, like the overlook I might have photographed, sinewy green, and the snow-pricked thumb of that mountain, I've forgotten its name, under which nobody I still remember to call was born. In the days when they came and tried to take my mother away in a van to the county hospital for procedures against her will, for the good of the population growing too fast because of dumb, ugly country folk like her. Had the day not been hot and mean, a government calling me home by a different word, I would have made a record of everything there flowing from the mouth of the river, the yellow and deep water, the big mouth, the 5 stars, the Tao. One reminding me now of the next, heavier than foreign air. Their yellow names soaking the page. So I'm going to move to the title section of the past, which is the last section. And these poems are partially elegies for my uncle and my grandfather, who I lost just as I was crossing that very strange anniversary in this country. So this first poem in that section is called List of Forgivenesses. The children I was, the chemical bitten green of their sadness, who watched the generational assembly of prior knowledge, whose shame formed somewhere over the neon ocean. Sorrow is ever inelegant, the squat concrete faces that greeted them, not knowing where to pass the salt at endless Christian tables, whose hand to hold, whose tongue, yearlings stalking the wilted margins of America, light through trembling fingers of foreign trees, who once cut their hair tight black and straight across the forehead, whose blood was dark as soy, vinegared cabbage, radish root, the hours adrift in someone's blue eye, the humble light that carried them there. The tragedies I thought I was, the slow burn of moonlight each night. Sorry, I'm not sure what happened. I just muted for a second. Okay, I think we're back. This next poem is called Poem About My Life. Poem about my life. The opening to another country was always inside my father's mind, in many forms, in dreams, green swords swirling in a winter mist, colorful moths, sometimes a molar falling out, porcelain clattering onto the table like a single rung chime. When I come into the house, I am held by him, become a child again. The view from here seems never to change, but in wishing it over many years, I have changed it. A new worry is my father's more delicate footsteps, picking out a path to the bathroom sink at night. The hair beneath a gardening hat leaking its color. When the writing will not come, then I must go to the porch and listen there to the talking of one tree to its double, and think of my father, who used to say that living is not so painful as living would have you believe. When, as a teenager, I borrowed the rusted Nissan, drove it through a field, and returned it to him with sudden blue flowers tucked into its mouth. The bluest one he saved. The wind that made those dull trees sing, blowing in from the future, somewhere my father has never been. Poem for feeling's sake. Morning with a feeling to walk, limbs churning through air and the traffic so polite. Where the past meets the day's magnetosphere, a hectic body growing older and more unknown as the mood turns. Trees in the plaza boxing for sky, something dry and melancholy rustling underfoot, I pass the sunburned outline of a vine against the garden's pale wall, one bud in the neighbor's gutter, the other reaching as it opens. Who am I to think about philosophy, money, reading books, when the color of the hour was really gemstone chiffon swirling in a giant god's eye? When time coughed me up naked and dazzling, I was hungry for nectarines and heavy cream, fish heads in broth, sprouted white beans, while up from here, past a cool, starry nothingness, infallible satellites roam in description, their chrome rabbit ears tweaking out human signs. So I'm going to read one more poem from this title section, The Past. And this poem is called Wang Xing Tai Says Goodbye. And Wang Xing Tai was the name of my grandfather, who in his life had one eventful and exciting trip from Shandong, China to America. Wang Xing Tai says goodbye. Some things are not so plain to say, that I am sometimes in pain and occasionally sit to write my name in dark inks, and the brush goes wobbly as if excited into shapes without me. The crop fields of someone's childhood still bother the edges of my vision. Tawny, gridded country, low-born, wind gripping the assembled heads of wheat, bristling. One job seems now just like another. I was a worker in a factory, a prison, other places ill-defined. But I remember best the war, the American GIs. They taught me my English swears, whole rooms cleared of men and dogs as I cursed them up and down, my hand on my little lieutenant's hip, the green and the muddy browns. In this life, I even crossed the ocean in an airplane, drank too many Coca-Colas on the flight, ordered with flashcards I stored beneath my hat. It wasn't profound. At the end, your life doesn't really churn before your eyes. It's not a colossus that plays itself back upon the eyelids like a final prayer. But the soda was good, sweet. It popped and sang on my tongue like English, someone remembering me now in the present tense. So I'll move now to the center of the past, which is a suite of Tiananmen sonnets. These are sonnets made of iterations of 6 and 4 lines and words. They are as much poems, I think, as conceptual experiments in avoiding algorithmic censorship. In mainland China, the numbers 6 and 4 and references to 1989 are censored online, but using algorithm, so like you could be talking about your birthday party that you want your friends to come to, that's on, 6/6, and something like that would be potentially flagged and censored. So these sonnets are experiments in form as safety, form as inquiry. So they're all titled Tiananmen Sonnet, and I'll just read a few, and then there's a little interlude in the middle. Tiananmen Sonnet. Dead air in air. The anniversary of language holds you back against bucolic dreaming. Downstream from here is running a miraculous color. Elegy bursts like a ribbon in air. Thinking again of the square today. Bold sky, passing episodes of cloud. Vegetation mutters in the far west. A column of ghosts going violet over time. Familiar song looping overhead. Lines pressed in air. Stems of the lily, of the plum blossom. Pink heads knocked around on a windblown day. Wind swept the square, who swept like wind. Champagne burst from the cannon's mouth, like touching the pearl of history in a poem. The unnatural shell, nonetheless, does its duties to form. The parade of emperors in sashes appeared just at blue-black dusk. Watched another year explode. Flight attendants are kind to the Chinese baby wrapped in petroleum fleece, tragedy or a lamb. Goodbye to cow country, the green peaches kissed by a mortal blush. Fragrant new century teasing you from behind white clouds. Just down below, some protesters disappear during beverage service, gone so soon, whispered in a hush, not life, but deathlessness. Stones in a river, river mapping white palms. Some who warble on dotingly about the past, achieve a monosyllabic yellow, asking what's possible or what's dead, running through the mind's most urgent refrain. I am not always dissatisfied. By starlight sowing the rich field of discontent, rainwater falling between lines. Remembrance annoys the cat, two paws against history, snoring there in a moon-silvered window. Best to leave her happy, humbler than most. And this is a little interlude in the sonnets. In my little office on the ground floor, feeding the stapler another cartridge, dust nibbling my forearms. The screen emits a glow sickly fluorescent, or it's my own face that's yellow, the light just truth-telling. 30 years this June, when I almost was not and suddenly was, but I do not salute the past. There are no windows unto it, save one. Windows of history open up. Just another room half shaded, full of someone else's belief. To give you a sense of seconds passing, like light at the end of the day crumbles from the air, all its unfulfilled conditions. I imagined a form that would preserve the shape of the column of tanks from my recurring dream. Their grays and their smoke, their outlines, the force of their intention in all possible directions, punching through time. A form for the past itself is an idea too elegant to exist, is a compartment I can't keep. When rarely and at best I would show you the room that the dissolving letters make, the weight of the day passing through it. So I'm going to finish now with two shorter poems Thank you everyone so much for listening. This is so nice. And I'm really excited to hear, Rosemary, to hear you read. So this one is called Poem for Chores. Today his esophagus aches, the words choking a little inside their tubes and swishing the blue soap around yesterday's bowl. Light hums the attendant scenes of dust. He coughs twice into a shirt sleeve. The cat rustles and shreds her papers, the mouse in the tub he released with a blessing. Until next time. In the interim, the to-dos in neon go on and on. In the mind, terrain of neurotransmitters or cobwebs. Stopping at the desk to pluck an unripe word. Each day he sits down with the sun, whispers to his lime as he muddles, sweeps the broken glass to safety, polishes the chrome bits. I look for him there at the end of a task, his pinky finger curled up just so, a hook or the enchanting sail of his hand now at rest, the comma before the rest of him. And this last poem is called Why Write? Which I think was really the question on my mind when I wrote this book. Why write? Uncle visits me in the film where the artist encounters a dead man in the park, unconvincingly half hidden in the bushes. And the chance to photograph death is so electric and brief that the artist runs away, forgetting the camera and the dark hum of the trees at night, runs to find a buyer for the photograph he has already forgotten to take. Uncle belongs to the airlessness of memory, soft and black and quiet, while I hold to the white of the page, its paling folds, a skiff charging the future, cargoless and tired. Were it any other color. Uncle doesn't take sides now that he is dead, or he is forever on the side of the dead who collect their prize every time I am writing to reach the winning side. Uncle expels doubt from the sentence, threatening to double back on itself, its anger at carrying forth in a mute direction, its grief over where it began. Uncle begins again, while I pluck a memory at random, tender as it is. Clear onion stew, from which Uncle ladles up a single unlidded goat's eye, laughs and begins to see us with it. The squealing of children for more, the living oblige. I am not writing to photograph the past. I am writing to sit inside the pauses of Uncle's sentences, the commas of the dead, the stormless harbor where Uncle rests his head. Thank you everyone so much for listening.
Thank you so much, Wendy. There's so much particular feeling in all of the relation of these different poems to different people, and it's really special to experience that in the space of your reading and in your voice and in your person. And it's something that I feel very is differently present in Rosemary's work as well, who I'm so excited to introduce now. Rosemary Waldrop's most recent books are The Nick of Time, Gap Gardening, Selected Poems, and Driven to Abstraction, all from New Directions. Her novels, The Hanky of Pippin's Daughter and A Form of Taking It All, are now available in one volume from Northwestern University Press, and her collected essays, Dissonance, if you are interested, from University of Alabama Press. She has translated 14 volumes of Edmond Jabez's work. Her memoir, Lavish Absence, Recalling and Rereading Edmond Jabez, is out from Wesleyan University Press, as well as books by Emmanuel Ocard, Jacques Roubaud, and from the German, Friederike Mayrocker, Elke Erb, Peter Waterhaus, and Gerhard Rühm. For 56 years, she and her husband, Keith Waldrop, ran one of the country's most vibrant experimental poetry presses, Burning Deck, in Providence, Rhode Island, where she lives. Across her many books of poetry, her essays and translations, Rosemary Waldrop has assembled what feel like continents of language, terrestrial and marked as much with ecstatic elevation as they are with precipice and gap. Over the time we trace in her selected poems, Gap Gardening, we follow an evolving magnetism toward the seams of understanding, sites of illegibility, silence, irresolution, irrecoverability. Where many poets fabulate through the work of likeness and association, Waldrop's attunement seems cast to some more jagged frequency. What are the harmonics or counterpoints of our different respective experiences of the foreign? How do we form a ground from our many kinds of oneness, or a garden from estrangement and mutual regard? This newest book from New Directions moves more intimately into the relational terrains of forgetting. Quote, without you to say you to, without you saying you to me, she writes in the piece Otherwise Smooth. Even as this work renders grief, the mind's confusion, the poet is also persistently radiant in her being with, in her recognition of language as a fabric or a liquid passing through ever new time. Across the changing courses she is navigating, I think part of what returns us again and again to Rosemary Waldrop's work is her simultaneous humility and awe, her intuitive embrace of some kind of edge. It is such an honor now to be welcoming Rosemary Waldrop to the Poetry Project.
Thank you so much, Kyle. It's a beautiful introduction. And thank you also, Maddie and Corey, and especially Wendy for this beautiful reading. It's very moving. And thank you all who are listening. I'm going to read from the new book, The Nick of Time. And I'll start with a longish poem in sections called The Almost Audible Passing of Time. 1. I've been sitting so still, I might be part of the garden. Time might shut down if I weren't still cultivating an edge of desire. Its thirst, its burst toward the region of expectation. The way a hungry baby stretches its arm towards his mother's breast. Or the cat keeps eyeing the grackles, black as if already night. The pale moon hangs ready for her cue, so shallow sunlight is still sinking through the air. The future. Surprising we can think of it, its uncertain contours, body, mass, when the ads all announce end of season sales. 2. The garden, in fact, lies behind me, is nothing but an act of memory, along with the dry smell of a stone wall crumbling at the point where sky and earth would come together. All our temporal concepts can be traced, it is said, to feelings of effort and fatigue, just as it takes learning and failure to become aware of our capacities, encouraged with luck by a mother's smile. But can I look at a word as if I hadn't learned to read? We're still running through high grass, smelling the sluggish mine river mingled with distance and the lilac purple. The day all dawn and dew, dusting sleep from bird wings. Even though your nose is in your book, I can just see you roll your eyes at such silly questions. 3. Ritual, repetition, rhyme. For centuries, we've tried to thwart the arrow, but even when, at the prayer of Joshua, the sun stood still, time nevertheless continued. Likewise, when Rousseau tossed his watch. Staring at the mottled bark of the sycamore, do I think this ritual will protect me from the constant changes of my body, the run toward dust to dust? Is it to freeze this moment before the mosquitoes come with their cargo of itches that I watch beetles and weeds and pods as if I were interested in them? But I don't even know their names, when words and their entanglements are my feelers. Without them, I'm in darkness. 4. I searched the cracks between my English and German for more words than either has, to gather gradations in softness of the late afternoon air, as if they could help my nerve impulses not to fire on the all or nothing principle like our elections, but to transmit even the slightest discrepancies of light, the weakest hum of an insect. But even so, the leaves soften the edges of the tree. The alphabet takes many American minutes to take the place of one look. And it's the pale moon between the leaves, not a symbol, that triggers the image of a German farm lost in strata of time, solar, sidereal, nuclear, where the pale light stretched out the distance, and the cows chewed their cud so slowly, immeasurable by any clock, a different time, not suited to the ephemeral. 5. No matter what comes into the house, a letter, today's paper, you are convinced you have already seen it, as if your present were being devoured by an imposter past. Whereas I look at my hands and think I've never seen those veins. True, they are more prominent now, as if asking to be recognized. And the moon up in the afternoon. Perhaps the present is only the past gnawing its way into the future, so that our day does not exist at all. No, no, you say, it's simply over. 8. The instant of late sun on my hands feels worth 2 birds out of reach, on which the cat's attention is riveted. My attention wanders, not by hops and jumps, but alternate diffusion and concentration, like the foot of a snail. As if thinking were a method of scratching on these clumps of earth, and I could grab a fistful in order to hold on. The way I press words deep into the paper. Do I hope the breaks between them will interrupt, if not beat time? The way thinking of the cows enlarges the small plot into a plane, because cows move slowly and in the distance. Wittgenstein claims words are not essential to what we call language. And it's true, in the tweets of birds, much is meant and understood. But did he not recognize connective tissue, even though he had skin covering his whole body? Of course, he also thought he could have a toothache without teeth. This opinion does not depend on the direction of time, and so won't upset the flight of birds, you say, nor keep the cat from contracting her pupils to remove their picture. I chase my little thoughts around a circle the way the cat chases her tail. So more often she leaps into the nick of the kill. Once upon a time, I spoke my mother's tongue, lake, pond, deep river, sea. And the wake of a ship showed not only the churn of water behind it, but the yet unrealized advance about to happen. Then, suddenly, I was an old woman, enveloped by evening cool. The waning light, damp on the skin, makes the yard less spacious, less direct than the remembered garden. I'm not a virtuoso of stillness like the cat, but feel the lightness born of fatigue, of words that say nothing, but hang in the air like echoes or positive joy. And now I'll read a few from the sequence called In Pieces, which are short little bursts, very different. So In Pieces has an epigraph by Robert Creeley. Words are pleasure, all words. Natural. So not real like thought or possibility. The pattern of my reading, beginning with there was, moves into the present, like lifting a hand, unsure whether to imitate duration or mimic passage. As long as form is never less than activity, it's not how the cookie crumbles, but simply that it falls apart. Happenstance, a hat, a window, whirling leaves. Why not trust the rest will follow? In the dream, I could not see you because you thought you were hanging from a trapeze. Tone deep. No sound is less than a sound or more. But music keeps us from hearing each one by itself, says John Cage. It is a pity. No mother tongue unless a mother, or many books demanding we enter their superb monotony. What tongue would not allow us to say you in the deep sense, intimate? Years of melancholy, errors in pronunciation, something in the middle slows down. So many times a day, I do not speak any language. Plugs and sockets. No recipe for poetry or sex, just border. In panic, you invent the crawl and hope for 9 lives. Lives? What if your rhythm doesn't match any language? Runs down before reaching the knot in the wave. The hand is quicker than the eye, but space twists. The sun sets in the middle of a word. Then we don't know what's up or down. Encounter. What could I think to say in local gestures? Slow into form and cannot catch the next. A zoo in the middle of a sentence. Sponge, antenna, wall, bomb. This time of life to learn to talk to you, to sit down a square character, to believe with words. widening rings in the water, or else clouds in the sky. Sunset theory. To feel an idea is difficult and rare. A private fluency of figment and frontier, a splinter in the sky. Let's not get sentimental. The word reality is a word. Atoms are unpredictable, a warp in a continuous field, a gamble against the powers of disorder. But grammar can unpack a sentence it has taken you so long to understate. What open window? What thin but penetrating light? Broom or heather? Don't overestimate muscles or get on Hegel's high horse either. There is no end to the potential for disorder, but that's no reason to idealize definition. What is a bedpost? The bedpost, says Creeley, is an extraordinary shape between you and me, and when even the laws of physics are only probable, could going west prove you're young? And are you? Manifest desire is uneasiness. Simple nature. Can it be found? Not here. No small local containments. Galactic spin, wormholes and bridges, clotted cosmic cream. Large fields of indistinguishable details, peculiar motions in the brain. Don't ignore the whirling leaves. Where did I put my keys? Dark matter passes through us, swallowing what little light. Amazed, we are still talking, still learning to, and we thought it was later. Any single thing is so complicated we can only give it a little shove with the knee. The cry of the gulls, the line between water and grammar, horizon and interpretation, between two blues, field of error. My gestures not my own, desire not a color, and the sound of the sea. Listen. The equation must be beautiful. Allow the first look its density before what words make of it, or often gusts of wind. Light compact in comparison with what? Inert reason? But I admit that everything is interrelated on the model of language. The lovers on the park bench, the bakery, the shadows playing in the wall, breath quenched in multiple directions. Preconceptions without delay. Because light finds a place to fall, if intermittent, I can live in a small word and lose my head for another. Despite the slowness of my work, I have not explained, at best described in more elaborate terms. Opaque. Opaque, the space of hesitation, ricochet of recto verso. But the kiss is admirable. Simple syntax, easy tail, mouth undone at the lips. The problem with pronouns. All the bodies, one by one, the measure, says Robert Creeley. Composite, containing simples, as surely as words are pleasure. The door, the white door, all the doors to the small range of wavelengths called the visible world. we've attached names so I could speak to you. Now something in the middle has come apart. The word I sits on my shoulders, ready for carnage. And I finish with reading a couple, maybe 3 poems from actually the most recent sequence in this book called Rehearsing the Symptoms. Wanting. Wanting always the possibility of this body, thinking it here in anxiety, in fear, but wanting to want the light never to stop. Caught between wanting and acting, between language and landscape, wanting to contain volumes, multitudes, curves to everywhere, describing circles of light, flashes of lightning. Wanting the body visible from head to toe and without secret, a nakedness without depths, believing it possible, the light as event, thinking to want to think, as if in response. Doubting I love while knowing I have wanted to, thinking to console myself by describing veins in a block of marble, as if seeing a reason for seeing. Fearing to exist without really living, absence of body within the body, wanting to be able to suffer, to look at the dark, the mask of night, the mass of night that surrounds or is myself. Thinking of the body here without thinking, not knowing how to think, swimming without fatigue, as if without body, in a sea without water, without end. Thinking. I don't think I know how to go about it. I sit at the edge of the water as if it were the right place for learning to think. As if it were enough to sway with the current, or indecision, stay, walk away, give in to the sand dunes fading and falling, or a quick push upright. If I can't walk, might I yet, like Parkinson's patients, be able to dance? My brain's incessant activity seems fruitless. It can't be thinking. I put it on paper to encounter it outside myself, an obstacle, a wall with a grain, with pores where I might discover a pattern. Then I'm recalled to my body by legs as if pricked by needles. How can I think when I can't even see night falling swiftly, shifting around me like water? Can one look at nothing and hope for help? Is it a matter of rocking with the dark monotonously? But I am speeding or slowing down the long lane where thinking gets lost in layers of dust, failing precision, failing to see, to embrace. The gulls circling, the vast empty space, traffic noise borne in on the wind. Should I take off my clothes, nudity being power? But would I know my body is scattered among memories, impossible to hold in the mind all at once? If I let the night invade my eyes all the way to the horizon, as if it had a body, might I then see the cause of my not seeing? It might be a beginning. And the last one is called doing. I often don't know what to do, or if I want to. Dawn has long broken while I still drag my feet in the mud inside my head, hope for coffee, make a B-flat moan to prepare the plunge into action, or not. Maybe I want to cast only a passing shadow, feel like my mother thanked God when she took off her corset. But I am worried there's something I ought to be doing, afraid I'll die without having done anything. Realized myself, you call it, but wouldn't that just mean limited myself? A cement mixer stuck in one motion, even if it helps build a house? So I delude myself into thinking I'm doing something when thinking, or when descending into the night with the cat and the dreams of the cat. You say, no doing without sweat of the face, thorns and thistles, and bringing forth children. Should I look instead of worrying about fine distinctions that escape my eyes? Listen instead of fretting about the size of my ears? But can I cultivate my garden without becoming a cabbage head? The hand gets ready to write. Could we not call this manual labor? Or a stage in the great work of rendering the corporeal cat incorporeal while giving her body to the bodiless word, even if it's from despairing of my own body? You say, my writing is so slow, it's more like gravitational condensation or dust gathering on the cleaning supplies. It's true. I'm dawdling as if I had time to watch the formation of geological layers, though night already seeps through my brittle bones. I certainly don't know what to do to end my days gracefully. But the body dies all through our lives, thousands of cells every second. So everything should be very clear. Thank you.
Thank you, Rosemary. This has been such a joy and a special occasion to listen to the two of you read together, truly. I'm so grateful to both of you, and I'm deeply encouraged to know that we have a recording of this event that, that we can return to over and over again, because it was just such a remarkable gathering. So thank you again. I do just want to share with everyone that we have a couple of other events this week. So tomorrow we have one of our discourse events, Can You Read Me Now? And that's with Danilo Machado. And then on Friday, we have Translating Feeling, Traducir Sentir with Jime Izquierdo Ugas and Edua Restrepo Castaño. Wendy, Rosemary, thank you both so much again. And now everyone, you should be able to unmute your microphones if you'd like to say hello or share a few appreciations. We'll keep the Zoom open for maybe 5 or 10 minutes longer.
Thank you.